and thanks for tuning in to Up Close at Upward Studio. I'm your host, Brian Esposito. Today I'm sitting down with Gary Martin. Gary is a realtor based in Richmond, Virginia. After graduating from James Madison University, he began a career in residential new construction. Now he helps his clients buy and sell properties in Richmond, Virginia, with experience ranging from luxury home listings to first-time home buyers, as well as new construction and development sales. Thanks for joining me, Gary. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Great.
Not sure if I'm an expert, but here I am.
Well, we all try to be, right? So let's just jump right in if you're good with that. So let's start with your pre-real estate career. So tell me about life before becoming a real estate agent.
Yeah, I graduated from James Madison University. Didn't really know what industry I wanted to get into. Ran into a home builder at the career fair. Thought that was a fun industry to kind of go and cut my teeth in, and ended up staying with them for about 6 years, building homes, and then being in charge of creating developments with different developers around the Northern Virginia area, and then decided on a whim I wanted to move to Richmond, Virginia, and haven't looked back since.
Nice. Where were you before?
I was up here in like the Haymarket, Gainesville area, where I grew up. So yeah.
Great. So how did that experience of working in new construction sort of help you in your current role as a realtor?
Yeah, it definitely gave me confidence that I wouldn't have had otherwise jumping right in. You know, I've been licensed since 2021, March of 2021, and, you know, I didn't have experience as a realtor per se, but I had a lot of experience in the real estate world. And so it actually kind of transferred over pretty easily and gave me a lot more confidence than newer agents probably would have had from the very beginning.
Okay. And so did that career bring you to Richmond, or were there other factors?
No. So, I mean, COVID for one, you know, just everyone kind of exploring, you know, themselves, I would say, and kind of looking for new opportunities. And Richmond, you know, positioned itself as a new opportunity for me. I went down and visited one weekend, fell in love with the city, walking down by the James River, and decided, hey, you know, I want to make this my home. And here we are now.
Yeah, Richmond's great. Richmond's a really cool area. I've been many times in my life, and, you know, it's pretty hip, and, you know, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It's really nice, you know, having a place where you can be downtown and then you drive 10, 15 minutes away and all of a sudden, you know, you're going past cow pastures and, you know, farms, things like that. So it's very unique and diverse in that sense.
Yeah. And the architecture there is just, I mean, you have the Victorian homes and everything else. Can you talk about that a little bit? The style of homes you see in that area?
Yeah. So look, we can kind of break it down from like a city of Richmond perspective. So the first neighborhood I actually moved to was a neighborhood called Church Hill, which is on the east side of the city. So that's kind of the oldest part of the city. You have historical figures like, you know, Patrick Henry made his name there at the St. John's Church where he gave the Liberty or Death speech. Edgar Allan Poe grew up over in that area. So a lot of those houses were built, you know, kind of early, late 1800s. The first house I lived in was built in 1893. So you kind of have like a Italianate and Greco-Roman architecture style there. So like the columns and like the really cool elevations with all like the unique designs and everything there. As you kind of branch out west towards like the Fan and Museum districts, a lot of those homes were built like in the early 1900s. So a lot of that, it kind of has a little bit of like a Georgetown feel in Washington, D.C. comparatively. Very colorful brick homes, Victorian homes, that kind of style.
Nice. Great. So, and you've been down there for how many years now?
Gosh, since October 2020.
Okay. So can you talk a little bit about the state of the real estate market down there, and maybe how you've even seen it transform since that time?
Yeah. I'd say it's very competitive in the Richmond market for a lot of different reasons. So when I first started there, it was somewhat competitive. You know, you'd have 5 or 6 offers on a home if you were looking. I think when I moved there, you know, the word about Richmond was just starting to get out. Hey, it's this awesome place. It's a little bit more relaxing. It was attracting a lot of people from New York City, a lot of people from the DC, Northern Virginia area. Now it's even starting to attract people from the West Coast, believe it or not. So that's just creating more competitive situations. Our market doesn't have the high dollar sales that those markets have. And now it's kind of starting to transition to where, Richmond's getting more and more expensive to get into. But when you're coming from a place like New York City or Washington, D.C. or L.A. and San Diego even, the price seems very attractive compared to what homes are selling for there.
Yeah. Is it, I know here at least all you hear about is, no inventory. And that drives just, price. It drives how fast these, the homes sell, days on market, things like that. Is that the case in Richmond, or how are things looking there?
It is and it isn't. So it is literally every single house has a different story right now. Just with the way that rates are right now, right? They're hovering between like 7 and 7.25 nowadays. If you have a house positioned in neighborhoods like the Fan, there's not a lot of inventory there. That house is probably going to go pretty quick with minimal contingencies, if any contingencies. Kind of a little bit on the suburbs and more rural areas now. You might have a house that will sit for maybe a week or two, usually going around the listing price. Sometimes if you're a buyer, you might be able to get some sort of a steal there, but it all comes down to how your agent's communicating with the listing agent, and vice versa, and making sure that, we're all putting our best foot forward for our clients, and making sure that, the other side understands who's coming in to offer on their house, and kind of liking everything from there.
Okay. Gotcha. So, are there particular areas, within Richmond that you specialize in? Or is it kind of the whole gamut? What would you say to that?
Yeah, so that's a very great question, because a lot of people ask the question, and in your mind you have an answer for that every single time, and then your next buyer that comes or seller that comes is in a completely different area than where you typically do work. So I like to position myself as starting from the Fan westward to the near West End, Glen Allen, Short Pump, and Goochland. That's kind of where I specialize and where I know the most about. With that being said, I get taken in a lot of different directions working for builders. So in between the city of Richmond and Williamsburg, even in New Kent County, Charles City County, places like that as well too. There's a lot more availability of land and a lot of things being built up. So there's a lot of great opportunities over that way, and that's where business has taken us to.
Nice. Is Short Pump still growing quite a bit?
Absolutely. Short Pump is almost growing to the point where it's kind of two counties almost. It's like Western Henrico County and a little bit of Goochland County. Eastern Goochland County is like creeping into this mini metropolis there, where you have the Short Pump Mall. You have a lot of car dealerships there. You have just a lot of great things amenity-wise. Gyms, plant nurseries, schools, everything.
Great. So somebody's going to sell their home in Richmond in the current market there. What kind of advice would you give them, or how would you start that process?
For me, it would be kind of getting an understanding of what their goals are with the home. Is this something where they need to make X amount of dollars in order to get into their next home? Is this something where, they're expecting a certain price and maybe they don't know how to price it or what the comparative sales are? That's where we come into play, and we kind of attack it as a team and a partnership, and kind of get to work hand in hand together with that. So just kind of knowing what they need to get out of it first, so then we can establish a game plan from there and work together on getting the best outcome for them.
Great. And then moving through that process, what are some of the things that you might do along the way, from a marketing perspective, you talked about comps a little bit, so figuring out, the best price, and then all the way through to negotiations and closing. So can you take me through that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. If it's a home that's in an area that's selling pretty quickly, we're going to have a different approach than we would if it's a home where, kind of like I was talking about earlier, where maybe it's taking 1 or 2 weeks for a home to sell versus the typical 2 to 3 days. So if we're in one of those hot areas, the way we've been positioning ourselves lately is kind of doing a grand opening open house where we'll do something fun like a Wine Wednesday night on a Wednesday night. And, we've been having amazing turnouts for that. We're having 30, 40 people showing up to things like that.
Yeah.
Whereas for that house, if we did an open house on a Saturday or Sunday, we're getting 2 or 3 people.
Right.
Because if the house is in that hot of an area, everyone's coming to see it on Thursday and Friday. We might not even be getting showings on Saturday and Sunday. So making sure that you create, a lot of hype at the very beginning and maintain that hype and don't let it linger too long because you might lose, a little bit of momentum there, and making sure everyone's, ready to put in their best and final pretty quickly there.
Great. Yeah. So are you seeing a lot of multiple offers lately, and how do you deal with that process?
Yeah. So on the listing side of things, if we have multiple offers coming in, we're going to set a deadline, especially if we're in a hot neighborhood, and make sure that we're reviewing all the offers at the very end of the process, right? We want to make sure that we have essentially the best deal for our listing clients. What's the best price? What's the least amount or the most favorable amount of contingencies? Just making sure that they're getting a crisp deal that's going to be in their best interest for them.
Okay, great. So 7+% interest, high prices, relatively speaking. Is now a good time to buy?
I think so, yes. Barbara Corcoran said it best. She's the one who's kind of going viral right now, and we all know who Barbara Corcoran is. She believes that when interest rates start to go down again, that the prices are just going to get even higher, right? So a lot of conversations have been going that 7% interest rates are kind of slowing down the market and contracting. We can see that with the amount of inventory that's at least in the Richmond, Virginia market. 3%, things were kind of wild, and anyone and everyone was kind of going out and looking for a home. People are kind of starting to think that when you get back to that 5% level, things will kind of reach a little bit of an equilibrium. But we're seeing 9 and 10 offers on homes in Richmond right now. And if rates go back down, to the 5s, let's say, I think that could turn back into 20 offers again, depending on where the house is and what the price range is.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And so you talked about sellers and, listing a home for sale. Let's talk a little bit about buyers. So what advice do you have for somebody who's looking to buy a home in that area?
Yeah. So right now, especially if you don't know the area well, getting kind of your feet in the water, dipping your toes in is the best way to go about it. This doesn't have to be an overnight process. What I like to do is, especially if someone's new to the area, and we have a lot of people new to the area that are a majority of our buyers right now, they don't really know where to start. The best place to start is driving around town, getting to know the area, whether you want to be in the city, whether you want to be in the more suburban areas, whether you want to be in the more rural areas. Just getting down there and actually getting to experience it. If someone says they don't know anything about the Richmond area, but they want to move there, and maybe it's the prices that are attracting them, or that, what you have to pay $1 million for here, you can pay $600,000 for down there. I invite them to just come take a car ride with me. We'll drive around for 4 or 5 hours, and you can pretty much hit every nook and cranny of the area within that amount of time and get a better direction for where you want to end up.
Great. Yeah. So let's kind of get back a little bit to your roots and talk about new construction.
Yeah.
I know I've seen on Facebook you've been posting about one particular home that's been going up.
Yeah.
And you've been taking sort of your viewers through the whole process from framing to, all the way through to, I think it's got a brick exterior now and all that, right?
Yeah.
So, So can you talk about new construction as an option in the real estate market these days, and your experience with new construction?
Yeah, so that's one of my favorite houses, by the way. That's over in the near West End, kind of over near University of Richmond, and the story with that house kind of plays into, the story of why new construction is a great option for people versus existing homes, if that's the case. We couldn't find exactly what that particular client wanted, and so we kind of had to create it, right? And if that product did exist, then there's 5 or 6 other people that wanted that product, and everyone's kind of willing to duke it out a little bit. So if you're going around right now and you're searching for a home and it just seems like maybe there's no light at the end of the tunnel and you put in offer after offer, new construction is probably one of the best options for you. You're not going to be competing with anybody. You're going to be paying, for the most part, a set price unless you're building a custom home where there's not going to be any surprises. You're going to know your options ahead of time. And you're going to have warranties and things that are going to last for 1 year, 2 years, and 10 years, between the mechanical systems, any aesthetic items, and any structural warranties. So it's a really great path to go down if you're having trouble with resale. And even if it's something where you just have to hide out a little bit, I've done that before too, where I was getting outbid, the realtor was getting outbid on homes. So I decided to go the new construction route. And eventually, I will get back into a resale home, exactly where I want to be. And it's a great pathway to building wealth, in my opinion, even if, you're getting outbid along the way.
Mm-hmm. So on that note, land, how is land looking these days in that area? I know it's up there here, in price.
Yeah.
The good ones tend to go pretty quickly, which is fairly unusual for land. They, in the past, I guess historically, they've sat for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But they seem to be a hot commodity, probably because people want to build their own homes these days. So I'm wondering if you could talk about land and lots a little bit.
Yeah. No, great question, right? Like you were saying, it seemed like land used to be something where, someone would have 100 acres for sale and it would take, 15 years, you'd see the same sign out in the pasture. Now it's not really the case. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a land grab, if you will. If something comes up on the market, it's usually gone. If it's a great lot that's in a high traffic area, it's usually gone within a week or two. And the prices are kind of climbing up too. What's very interesting, what I'm seeing right now, is you have individual lots that are developed and ready to go, and those are selling at a very big premium because a lot of the legwork is taken out of the way. And then you have raw land where nothing's been developed. There's no sewer, there's no water or anything like that. And that's probably taking a couple of weeks to come on because people just don't understand it as well. It's not something where you go, hey, I'm going to put a house on it. That takes a lot more due diligence and study periods. But even that's starting to go quicker now. People are assuming a lot of risk and not even studying, which I highly advise against. So.
Yeah. What are some, can you talk about some loan options that people might have when they're pursuing land or new construction?
So the two main options that I like to tell everyone are, the first one is a construction perm loan, which you're going to go out and meet with the lender and kind of go over how many draws your builder's going to have. So 9 times out of 10, someone already owns the parcel of land, or maybe it's been passed down by their family. And they'll go through and usually come up to someone like me and say, hey, I got a piece of land. I want to build. Do you have a builder? Yes. I've got a bunch of builders. So that part's taken care of. Usually pretty easy to figure out your style there. But then getting into the lending, that's when you get into a lot of the nitty gritty of, okay, what is this process like? Because it is a little bit different than just buying a regular home or even buying a pre-built new construction home. So they'll usually go through and you have to work hand in hand with the builder and the loan officer and the title company to establish a draw schedule where when you hit a, significant phase of construction, they will then disperse the money to you to be able to pay the builder to go to their next phase. So that's kind of the broad scope of it. It gets a lot more in depth, but kind of just from a surface level, that's where things start there.
Okay, great. Thank you. So getting back to Richmond, can you touch on what you think, sets Richmond apart from other cities in Virginia?
Yeah, definitely. For one, the accessibility and the ease of commuting there is definitely high on my list. Having grown up in the DC area, we're just used to traffic, right? It's a way of life for us at this point. Down there, it could take 15 minutes to get from one end of the city to the other end. And it's fairly easy to do so. There's an expressway that cuts right through town as well, which is fairly easy to get around. So I would just say the convenience of everything is phenomenal. The food scene is wild.
Great places there.
Absolutely. You could hit a different restaurant every single night. I'm not sure if you would, have a chance to hit them all within a year by doing that. And just the diversity of it too, and we're not known for one thing specifically, although I think we did just get voted like the best burger town in Virginia or something like that. But just a lot of great cuisines from all over the place. So and it's a very kind of nature-based city, right? So we're nestled right along the James River there, and there's a huge, trail system there between the North Bank Trail, the Buttermilk Trail, which is south of the river. You have the flood wall, which has like a scenic view of the actual city downtown from the other side of the river. Actually, one of your photographers and I did like a video from there recently, and all the pictures came out beautiful. So it's a very scenic city. And then the last thing is there's just a lot of cool history and things that are associated with the city. I was talking about, Patrick Henry earlier, and Edgar Allan Poe, spent more time there than he did even in Baltimore, where like everyone thinks he's a big Baltimore guy, right. But come to find he just died there. That was the most significant thing that happened with him there. So there's just a lot of cool things to experience there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of good bars, like you said, restaurants. Cary Street, right? It's Cary Street.
Yeah, Carytown. Yeah,
Carytown.
Yeah,
Carytown. Yeah. I've always enjoyed going to Richmond. It's been a few years since I've been there, but great town. Do you have any insight into development or ongoing projects that are happening in that area?
Yeah. So kind of taking it back to what we were talking about earlier, there's a lot of expansion happening east of Richmond, I would say, where, between Richmond and Williamsburg, there's a lot of things getting built up, kind of New Kent County area, a lot of big developments, Vinatera, there's a winery, there's a golf course, apparently there's more amenities kind of coming there. And then even on the western side of Richmond, things are expanding more out into Goochland. So it's kind of on two different fronts there. North of the city, you have Hanover County, which is kind of known for being more rural, but it's even expanding and has a lot of neighborhoods going in as well. And then kind of the hidden gem would be south of the river down in Chesterfield County. There's a lot of big real estate companies that are expanding down there too, kind of viewing it as the next frontier where a lot of things are going to get built up. So if you hear of places like Midlothian, or you have other places like Magnolia Green, which is a huge community, golf course community. There's schools in there. I think they have their own fire department there now. So there's a lot of expansion pretty much in every direction in Richmond right now.
Does that impact, the real estate market? What kind of impact, does it have?
I think it's attracting even more people from not only out of the area, but from out of state as well, because the more opportunities that there are to build there, kind of the more consistent our prices are going to stay from the new construction level. It's still increasing. Don't get me wrong. A townhouse that you could have bought for $350,000 in Magnolia Green a year ago, it's now going between $420,000 to $450,000 from a new construction standpoint. However, that's not terribly way overpriced compared to other parts of the country right now. I'd say maybe comparatively that could be like a $350,000 jump to like a $700,000 jump. It's not like that. There's still a lot of room to expand, and so that's going to keep the prices at a pretty good threshold, comparatively speaking.
Great. Okay. So what would you tell somebody who is looking to enter this industry, to become a real estate agent?
Gotcha. Man, I'm pretty sure I asked you to ask me that question too. So I would say, number one, know that it's a business, right? And with that being said too, you don't have to do it all on your own. That's another thing as well. So there's a lot of different options to jump into this business. You can do it on your own. Just know that you're literally going to be doing it on your own. You're going to be managing finances. You're going to be scheduling marketing. You're going to be scheduling photography, things like that, your own leads. Or you can join a team, right? You can join a team where all of that is already, kind of structured and allows you to jump in and give you an opportunity to, one, see if you like this industry, and two, if if the team dynamic is working for you, you can either stay there, or 3, you can kind of jump off and branch out and become your own team essentially. So that's kind of your 3 options there. Just know that, you have to be persistent. You have to put yourself out there. I never did any of the things that I do now, putting myself out there on social media, postcards, knocking on doors. I never imagined myself doing that. And it's kind of all just part of the job. So,
yeah, it must be fun in a way.
It is.
It's changed a lot, right? Marketing yourself as an agent these days is much different than it was even pre-COVID. I mean, social media has just blown up, and these days it's about even doing videos to market a home.
Yeah.
This old style of shooting just the home itself, really, not many people buy a home based on a video. The video is to market yourself as an agent, right? I mean, that's at least part of the reason why you would do it these days. So yeah, so that's changed quite a bit, that whole social media scene.
Definitely.
How to market on online. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a perfect blend of what you mentioned, where yes, it's great for, advertising yourself as a real estate agent. I truly believe if you have, let's say you have that amazing property and the price tag is probably high enough to where you're going to actually have to use those listing videos in order to gain attention and traction from, people around the country, in order to come in, and maybe your local buyer isn't the one that's going to be, most well suited. I see houses come up all the time with a beautiful price tag on it, and maybe they try to go the traditional route of marketing it just by throwing it on MLS. I can almost guarantee if there were things like videos done, or maybe more magazine media, things like that, some of those houses wouldn't sit on the market quite as long as they are right now. So I think it works to the benefit of the realtor and the real estate agent, and to the benefit of clients that have, amazing listings where it's going to take some out of the box thinking to get that sold, compared to just putting it in the MLS and having pretty pictures.
Right. Yeah. So, what would you say is, what are some of the most enjoyable aspects of this job for you?
Definitely whenever I get to call you guys.
Well, that means you got a listing.
Exactly.
First of all. Yeah.
Exactly. When I get to call you guys and kind of collaborate on doing some creative things, that is one of the best parts about my job. So, I mean, starting back from, you're getting a listing appointment and you're showing up to someone's home, and number one, they're trusting you to come into their home and kind of flip their life upside down for, a few weeks at least, right? So I want to get my occupied stager in there to kind of help them, 1, get their house ready to list and take pictures, and 2, take a little stress off of them as far as moving, right? We're going to organize things so that when the moving truck comes, you're just picking up the boxes that you already packed, hopefully, a month ago before we even hit the market, and you're just scooting them into the truck. So kind of just playing all those different roles as like marketer, salesperson, negotiator, moving coordinator, photography coordinator, videographer, all of those different things. That's the best part of this job. Between that and helping people, find their forever home.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine your life is a little bit like mine, in that every day is different.
Absolutely.
And, you never know if you're going to get that call that changes your whole day tomorrow. Like
Exactly.
You never know. So
Exactly.
so that's always it's sometimes it's stressful, but sometimes it's like, well, I'd rather do that than the same old thing every single day, right?
Yeah, no, very true. I mean, that's one of the, going back to, what advice would I have for somebody getting into the industry? Like, no day is probably ever going to be the same. So, the best bet is to structure it as best as possible. And if something comes up, you got to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 on how important it is. And if it's, 2 a 1, hey, I forgot to do my postcards for tomorrow. Okay, that's a 1.
Yeah.
A client calls you and, they want to make a move on a house tonight, and, it's a life-changing listing, or it's a life-changing purchase, that's a 10. You have to jump on that immediately. So that's, day to day is definitely different, but structuring it as best as possible is key to keeping things moving.
Yeah. Yeah. And structuring it that way in your own schedule. I mean, Yeah, and kind of go crazy otherwise.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's a million things flying at you all the time, right?
There's got to be some sort of structure, even if it's, imperfect chaos kind of coming in. Having some sort of structure still helps keep you on track day to day.
Yeah. Good. So what are some things that you do differently than, maybe other agents in the area?
Yeah. Kind of a two-part answer, I guess I would have. From a listing side of things, to my own fault, I probably get involved to the point where I want to make sure everything is as perfect as possible for you, the client, to make sure that you're going to be getting the most exposure to your listing, to make sure you're going to be getting the most amount of eyes, and you're going to present your home as best as possible to make sure you're going to be getting the best price and the best terms as possible for your listing. And I think a lot of that happens in the preparation and the pre-work and getting the house ready. And you guys obviously play a pivotal role in that, in producing amazing pictures and videography, and it comes back literally the next day, which is, time is of the essence in this industry as well. So just making sure everything is kind of project managed for a listing is kind of what I like to boast, in that I'm going to be here every single step of the way, and we're going to, get the best outcome possible for your home.
Yeah. Do you think you market your properties different than other agents in the area? I know we've done some fun videos with you. In the past, you've done ones where you're kayaking down the James River.
Yeah.
We did a Wes Anderson inspired video for social media that kind of blew up a little bit. Locally viral, apparently.
It was locally viral. Yes. We had a lot of shares.
Yeah.
Thing there.
And then we had the one with the drone off the balcony and all that. So
yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Do you present your properties in a different way than a lot of the other agents in that area?
Yeah, most definitely. So a lot of what I like to do is I like to create a lot of hype around any listing that comes our way. So I want to make sure the whole world knows that your house is going to be on the market, because that's ultimately what's going to get the most eyes, the most foot traffic, and the best deal, the best offer for you, right? So when we go through and do these creative things like the videos and, even the way that you guys just take pictures, right? I can tell when you guys take a picture of a room versus another photographer, it looks completely different. And putting in the investment to doing that, that's kind of what it is. It's an investment in your home. It's not just, an expense. It's making sure that, you're going to be getting a return on the value that someone else is putting into the house. So when we do these videos, and it's kind of, showing your property in a way that otherwise it might not have been shown, showing overhead views of the river and kayaking down the river in your backyard. I haven't seen anyone else do stuff like that in the Richmond market yet.
Great. And can you talk a little bit about, and maybe you touched on this a bit, but your day-to-day, what's a typical day in your life?
Yeah. Oh gosh, this is going back to the structure that we all pretend to have, right? So I'll usually wake up around 5:30 in the morning. 6 a.m. I like to get into an F45. It's a group kind of gym class. It's cardio some days. It's weightlifting other days. My girlfriend Carlisle and I do it together, so it's nice, like bonding time as well. End up heading home, shower, everything, get out the door, walk the dog. And then I usually actually like to hit up the Starbucks in the Fan, and I'll sit there for a couple of hours and get pretty much any and all of my administrative items taken care of. So if I need to do anything for marketing to plan, if I need to reach out to clients, if I need to reach out to vendors, attorneys, I kind of use that 9 to 12 time to get all of those things taken care of, so then I don't really have to worry about it for the rest of the day. And then usually after lunchtime, that's when all my appointments will start. So I'll do, I'll schedule inspections for the afternoon. I'll schedule, showing buyers around for the afternoon, unless, they're heading out of town. That's kind of where the wrench gets thrown in, where, hey, we structure our day, but it doesn't always end up ending structured. So usually to kind of summarize all that, morning, I'll have, my me time very early, and then administrative time, and then client time, vendor time, usually in the afternoon.
I was going to ask how you stayed in shape, because, that's it's my issue. We drive around to these different houses, and, fast food is fast food, and,
Yeah.
it's the easiest thing, and, sometimes it's not the best.
No, it's not. That's a losing battle that I fight too. So.
But that's good. I mean, you start off your day, with some fitness, and so that's important.
Yeah.
So what hobbies and interests outside of real estate do you have?
Yeah. So working out, I love. That's helped me to meet so many people in the Richmond area, and it's kind of going back to, I said there was a lot of trails and things like that in
Right.
Richmond. That's kind of like the vibe of the city. Is it's very outdoorsy, very like nature friendly, very get out and go. It's a very active city when it comes to that. We love walking around neighborhoods like Church Hill, the Fan, the Museum District, grabbing a cup of coffee at a local place and just kind of aimlessly walking around. I mean, people do that in Richmond because it's so beautiful there, and you can kind of get lost between the architecture and just, the landscape of everything. Like we said before, just going out and being a big foodie, trying a different restaurant, every other weekend, things along those lines. There's so many just fun things that we like to do, and there's a great sense of community, so you're never really going to be bored down there.
Yeah. So the old quote of, some say if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. Can you talk about how that resonates with you a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. A day of work doesn't necessarily feel like a day of work. Yes, some things happen where, things don't go as you planned, but as long as you bounce back the next day, everything's going to turn out all right. And I think, if you love what you do, when bad things do kind of come in and happen, they allow you to bounce back even quicker and even better the next time. And so, a lot of the stresses of a job where maybe you don't enjoy going into work every single day, they kind of alleviate themselves when you really like what you're doing. And I can definitely say I love what I'm doing. And, my biggest fear is being able to do this for the rest of my life and have it be sustainable. That's the one thing that keeps me going. So, be on the being sustainable part, how do you balance, real estate is can be demanding, right? How do you balance that life with, personal life and significant other and all that? What have you kind of learned over the years to try to help that process? Yeah. Oh, Carlisle's going to love this answer. I think at first it's communication is key, no matter what, whether it's with your friends, whether it's with your significant other, even with your clients, and I would say I always attend to my clients' needs as soon as possible. My mantra is, if you don't hear from me within 2 hours, call the authorities. Something happened to me. I think people laugh about that, but then they understand that, sometimes there is a boundary, but I do like to be as available as possible. So that might be something I'm still working on, but that's the answer that my clients and customers want to hear. As far as my friends go, they know how hard I work, and especially for them, a lot of my friends end up trusting me to help them out with listing their home or helping them to purchase another home. So if I tell them I'm not able to make it to something, most of the time they've already been down the road of me helping them out, so they understand how things can come up on a whim, so that I'm able to kind of go through and help everybody out. My girlfriend, Carlisle, I think at first she was kind of like, what did I get myself into, getting phone calls at 6 o'clock on a Sunday night. But over the span of a few months, I think she started to understand. She's like, this is just Gary. And so, if I like Gary, Gary's going to be Gary and kind of just be joyful and cheerful with everybody. And now it kind of fixes itself. There was never a problem, but it fixes itself. I'm sure it's the same with you.
Yeah, and it's always nice, in a way you're your own boss, and so if there's something that you have to attend to, then usually you don't have to call you don't have to call up your boss and make sure you get time off. And if something comes up with your girlfriend, then you're pretty much okay to do those things.
And I would say that's the greatest thing too, from like a flexibility standpoint. If one of us needs to let our dog Beasley out at some point in time, I usually have the flexibility to be able to do that. And so that's like the beautiful part of this job, is that like, yes, you want to maintain the schedule and you want to be as busy as possible, but if life does happen, you have the ability to kind of go through and focus on what needs to happen in your personal life as well.
Yeah, exactly. Is there anything else that you'd like to touch on?
No, if you're ever looking to come to the Richmond area, please reach out to me. I love showing people around there. I love teaching people about, what Richmond's about and what it's turning into and what opportunities are there. I think it's an amazing place to live. If you ever have any questions about just real estate in general, feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure my information will get posted.
Yeah, how do go ahead and say what?
Yeah, I'm super responsive on Instagram DMs and messages. You can call me directly. I don't know if I put my phone number out there. Yeah, so my 804-418-5509. If you shoot me a text just with what's your name and what you're interested in, that's the best way to get a hold of me. That way I'm not losing track of, if I have phone calls or if I have my phone turned off in an appointment or something like that. So always open to any questions, feedback, anything you need, call me.
Great. Well, thank you for joining me today, Gary. It was great.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right.